The neon-soaked streets of Neo-Bangkok's lower district never truly slept, but they did quiet down around 3 in the morning. That's when Jace did his best work, slipping through the shadows between the flickering holographic advertisements, checking the dead drops where tourists sometimes left their expensive tech unguarded, scanning the alleys for anything valuable that the night might have discarded. He'd been living this way for 5 years now, ever since his mother disappeared and the state gave up looking for her. 19 years old, and he'd become a ghost in his own city, invisible to everyone who mattered and unmemorable to everyone else. His dark hair hung past his ears, perpetually messy, and his clothes were a patchwork of scavenged pieces that somehow worked together. He liked it that way. Anonymity was survival. The sky above the district's towering apartments was perpetually hazy with pollution and light. But tonight something was different. Jace paused mid-step, his hand on a fire escape ladder, and looked up. A streak of burning light carved across the clouds, too slow to be a meteor, too erratic to be a normal aircraft. It was falling, spinning, leaving a trail of silver sparks in its wake. His street instincts screamed at him to ignore it, to mind his own business, to keep his head down. But curiosity had always been both his greatest weakness and his most useful trait. He watched the object crash somewhere in the abandoned industrial sector, maybe 2 kilometers east. The sound of impact rolled across the city like distant thunder. Jace was running before he made the conscious decision to do so. The industrial sector was a graveyard of failed enterprises and forgotten factories. The city had expanded upward and outward, leaving this area to rot at street level. Jace knew it well. It was one of his favorite places to salvage parts and hide from the occasional patrol drone that decided to enforce vagrancy laws. He found the crash site in an old textile factory's loading bay. The building's roof had a fresh hole punched through it, and debris littered the cracked concrete floor. In the center of the destruction sat something that made Jace's breath catch in his throat. It was an escape pod, unmistakably alien in design. Its surface was a shifting iridescent material that seemed to pulse with faint inner light. One side had cracked open on impact, revealing a small cockpit filled with technology Jace couldn't begin to identify. And there, crumpled against the pilot's seat, was a girl. She couldn't have been much older than him, maybe 20 at most. Her skin had an unusual luminescence to it, like she was lit from within by starlight. Her hair was long and flowed in colors that shifted between deep purple and midnight blue, depending on how the light hit it. She wore clothing that looked like it was woven from liquid silver, now torn and stained with something that glowed faintly blue blood, he realized with a jolt. Every survival instinct Jace possessed told him to run. This was bigger than him, more dangerous than anything he'd ever encountered. This was the kind of thing that brought authorities, military, maybe even off-world soldiers. This was the kind of thing that got street kids like him disappeared. But she was hurt. He could see her breathing, shallow and pained. One of her hands clutched at her side where the silver fabric was darkest with that luminescent blue. "Damn it," Jace muttered, climbing into the pod. "Damn it, damn it, damn it." Up close, she was even more, obviously not human. Her features were elegant in a way that seemed almost sculpted too perfect, too symmetrical. But there was something vulnerable about her too, something that made his chest ache. Her eyes fluttered open as he approached, and he found himself staring into irises that swirled with colors like a nebula. "Please," she whispered, her voice melodic even in its weakness. She was speaking English, but with an accent he'd never heard before, each word rising and falling like music. "Please don't. Tell them where I am." "Hey, it's okay," Jace said, surprised by how gentle his own voice sounded. He'd spent years hardening himself, but something about her stripped that away instantly. "I'm not going to hurt you, but you're injured. I need to get you somewhere safe." "Safe?" She almost laughed, then winced in pain. Nowhere is safe. They'll find me. They always do. Who's they? Before she could answer, a distant sound made Jace freeze. Sirens, multiple vehicles, approaching fast. Someone must have reported the crash. Can you walk? Jace asked urgently. The girl tried to stand and immediately collapsed against him. She was lighter than he expected, as if her bones were hollow like a bird's. That luminescent blood was seeping through her fingers, dripping onto his jacket. Okay, new plan, Jace said, making a decision that would change everything. He scooped her up in his arms, ignoring her weak protest. She was dying. He could feel it in the way her breathing rattled, could see it in how the light in her skin was dimming. I've got a place. It's not much, but it's hidden. It won't find us there. Why? She asked, those cosmic eyes searching his face. Why would you help me? You don't even know who I am. Jace was already moving, carrying her toward a service tunnel he knew led to the undercity levels. Does it matter? You need help, and I'm here. That's enough. The sirens were getting louder. Red and blue lights began to strobe through the broken factory windows. Jace slipped into the tunnel seconds before the first patrol car arrived, his heart hammering against his ribs. The girl's head rested against his shoulder as he navigated the darkness of the service tunnel. He could feel her getting weaker with each step, her breathing becoming more labored. Whatever species she was losing too much blood. Stay with me, he urged her, moving as quickly as he dared through the cramped tunnel. What's your name? Nessa, she murmured. My name is Nessa. I'm Jace. Nice to meet you, Nessa. Really terrible timing, but nice anyway. That got a small smile from her. Story of my life. His shelter was in the sublevels, accessible only through a series of maintenance hatches and forgotten passages. It wasn't much a small room that used to be some kind of electrical junction point, maybe 20 square meters total. But it was dry. It had power that he'd learned to tap illegally, and most importantly, nobody knew about it. He laid Nessa down on his sleeping mat, the only soft surface in the place. Under the harsh LED light he'd strung up, her condition looked even worse. That blue blood was everywhere now, and her skin's inner light was flickering like a dying star. I need to stop the bleeding, Jace said, more to himself than to her. But I don't know anything about whatever you are. Your biology could be completely different. Nessa's hand caught his wrist with surprising strength. The pod, she gasped. In the pod, there's a medical kit. Silver case. With my people's symbol. I can't go back there. The place will be swarming with. I'll die without it, she said simply. Those nebula eyes held his. Please, Jace. I know you don't owe me anything, but please. He looked at her for a long moment, at this impossible girl who'd fallen from the sky into his life. Every rational part of his brain screamed that this was insane, that he should leave her here and disappear, that getting more involved would only end badly. But Jace had spent 5 years surviving by trusting his instincts, and his instincts were telling him something different now. They were telling him that finding Nessa wasn't an accident, that helping her mattered in ways he couldn't yet understand. Okay, he said, squeezing her hand. I'll get the medical kit, but you have to promise me something. Anything. Don't die while I'm gone. Deal? Nessa's smile was weak but genuine. Deal. Jace grabbed his jacket and headed back into the tunnels, his mind already racing through the routes he could take, the risks he'd have to navigate. Above him, the city continued its endless cycle, unaware that something had just shifted in its depths, unaware that a street boy and a fallen girl were about to change everything. He didn't know it yet, but he was already falling in love with her. And she, despite the pain and fear and uncertainty of her situation, was beginning to fall for him, too, for the boy, who'd chosen kindness when the world had given him every reason to choose otherwise. Getting back to the crash site was easier than Jace had expected, which immediately made him suspicious. The patrol cars were still there, their lights painting the factory walls in alternating colors, but the officers seemed more interested in securing a perimeter than actually investigating the pod. That wasn't normal protocol. Someone wanted the scene preserved, not processed. JACE watched from the shadows of an adjacent building, counting the officers, memorizing their patrol patterns. There were 6 of them, which was 3 too many for a standard crash response. They were waiting for something. Or someone. He couldn't wait with them. Nessa was dying. The service tunnel he'd used before would take too long, so Jace opted for speed over stealth. He scaled the building next to the factory, his fingers finding holds in the deteriorating concrete that most people wouldn't notice. 5 years of urban climbing had made him part spider, part ghost. At the roof line, he crossed to the factory via a rusted maintenance bridge, dropped through the hole the pod had made, and landed in a crouch in the shadows. The pod sat there, like a dying star, its iridescent surface now dull and flickering. Jace's heart clenched at the metaphor. Nessa had looked just like that when he'd left her. He moved quickly, climbing into the cockpit and scanning for anything that looked like a medical kit. There a silver case marked with a symbol that looked like 3 overlapping moons. He grabbed it along with anything else that seemed important. A small datapad, what looked like a communications device, and a photograph sealed in some kind of crystal frame. The photograph stopped him cold. It showed Nessa, but different her. Hair was styled elaborately, her clothing formal and ornate. She was standing between 2 other people who shared her luminescent features. An older woman with kind eyes and a younger girl who was laughing at something off camera. Family. Nessa had family somewhere out there, and they probably had no idea where she was. Hey, movement in the pod. Jace didn't wait to see who'd spotted him. He bolted, the silver case tucked under his arm, scrambling up the wreckage toward the hole in the roof. Shouts erupted behind him. The sound of weapons charging made his blood run cold. Do not fire. A new voice, sharp with authority. We need her alive, you idiots. That goes for anyone who might know where she is. Jace didn't stop to feel grateful. He reached the roof and ran, leaping between buildings with the kind of reckless confidence that came from having nothing to lose. Behind him, he could hear officers trying to follow, but they were too slow, too cautious, too bound by their equipment and protocols. He was back in the tunnels within minutes, his lungs burning, his hands shaking with adrenaline. The medical case felt heavier than it should, weighted with the implications of what he'd just done. He'd officially made himself an accessory to. What? What was Nessa running from that had authorities willing to preserve crime scenes and hold their fire? When he burst back into his shelter, Nessa was exactly as he'd left her, but worse. Her skin's luminescence had faded to almost nothing, and that blue blood had spread across his sleeping mat in a pool that seemed to glow with its own inner light. I've got it, Jace gasped, dropping beside her and fumbling with the case's unusual latch. Nessa, I've got the medical kit. Stay with me. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused. Jace, right here? The case finally opened, revealing contents that looked more like art than medicine crystalline vials filled with swirling liquids, devices that hummed with energy, tools he couldn't begin to identify. Okay, you need to tell me what to do. I'm completely lost here. Nessa's hand, trembling and weak, pointed to a vial that glowed bright blue. That one. Injection. Here. She touched her neck, just below her jaw. Jace found what he hoped was an injector, loaded the vial, and pressed it to her neck where she'd indicated. The device activated automatically, and he watched as the blue liquid disappeared beneath her skin. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then Nessa gasped, her back arching, and light exploded through her veins like lightning. Jace scrambled backward, terrified he'd just killed her. But then she was breathing easier, the color returning to her skin, the wound in her side beginning to close with visible speed. Holy, Jace breathed. What was that? Regenerative serum, Nessa said, her voice already stronger. She pushed herself up to sitting, wincing but clearly much better than before. It's standard in our medical kits. Thank you, Jace. I wasn't. I didn't think you'd come back. I promised I would. Something in her expression softened. Most people break their promises. I'm not most people. Before Nessa could respond, a sharp knock echoed through the shelter, 3 quick raps, 2 slow, 1 quick. Jace's entire body tensed. That was Toby's signal. Stay quiet, he whispered to Nessa, then called out, Clear. The door, really just a reinforced hatch he'd installed himself, opened to reveal Tobias, a lanky 22-year-old with cybernetic modifications covering half his face and most of his right arm. His natural eye was brown and warm. His cybernetic eye glowed blue and could see in spectrums that normal humans couldn't. Jace, what the hell have you gotten yourself into? Toby said without preamble, then stopped when he saw Nessa. His cybernetic eye whirred, focusing. Oh no. Please tell me you didn't rescue an alien princess, or something equally stupid. I didn't rescue an alien princess, Jace said. He's lying, isn't he? Toby asked Nessa. Nessa, to Jace's surprise, smiled slightly. Not exactly a princess. Close enough that it doesn't matter for your purposes, though. Fantastic. Wonderful. My best friend has a death wish. Toby stepped fully inside, closing the hatch behind him and engaging the lock. The entire district is crawling with enforcement. Not regular cops. These are private military contractors. Expensive ones. They're scanning everything, stopping everyone, offering ridiculous reward money for information about an escaped asset. I'm not an asset, Nessa said quietly, but there was steel in her voice. I'm a person. I believe you, Toby said, his tone gentling. But they don't. And they've got the firepower to make their opinions very convincing. He turned to Jace. There's more. Someone else arrived about 20 minutes ago. A woman. Also not human, from what my sensors could pick up. She's searching too, but separately from the military contractors. Asking about Nessa by name. Nessa went very still. Describe her. Tall, maybe 6 feet. Silver hair, darker skin with that same glow you've got. She was armed, but keeping weapons concealed. Moved like a soldier. Had this intensity about her, like she'd burned down the whole city to find what she was looking for. Sienna, Nessa breathed, and there was relief in her voice. That's Sienna. She was my handmaiden. My friend. If she's here, she's looking for me to help me, not turn me in. You sure about that? Jace asked. Because if she's not, I've known Sienna my entire life, Nessa said firmly. She practically raised me. She's the one who helped me escape in the first place. If she's here, it means she found a way to follow me. Toby's cybernetic eye flickered. Problem with that. Even if she's friendly, she's leaving a trail. Those contractors have been following her movements. They're using her to find you. The implications settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Nessa's expression crumbled slightly. Then I've put her in danger too. Everyone I care about ends up in danger because of me. Hey, Jace said, moving to sit beside her. Without thinking, he took her hand. It was warm, and that inner light pulsed gently beneath her skin. You didn't ask for any of this. And Sienna chose to follow you because she cares about you. That's not your fault. Nessa looked at their joined hands, then up at his face. Something passed between them, electric and undeniable. Toby cleared his throat loudly. Right. So, while you two have a moment, let me explain our tactical situation, which is terrible. Toby pulled up a holographic display from his cybernetic arm, showing a map of the district. We've got contractors here, here, and here. Checkpoints are set up at every major tunnel entrance. They've got aerial drones scanning thermal signatures. And they're being smart about it, not making a big public scene, just quietly tightening the net. Can you get a message to Sienna? Nessa asked. Let her know I'm safe? Maybe, if I can intercept her before the contractors do. Toby studied the map. There's a night market in Section 7 that stays open until dawn. Lots of people, lots of noise. Good place for a covert meeting. If I can get word to her, that's where I'd suggest. That's too dangerous, Jace said immediately. If they're tracking her, they're going to find this place eventually anyway, Toby interrupted. Those thermal drones will map every sublevel warren in the city, if they're motivated enough. And trust me, the kind of money being thrown around, they're motivated. Your best bet is to make contact with her friend, figure out what the actual plan is, and get Nessa off-world before this gets worse. Off-world. The words hit Jace like a physical blow. Of course, Nessa would have to leave. She couldn't stay here, hiding in the sublevels forever. She had a life somewhere out there, among the stars, in places he couldn't even imagine. But the thought of her leaving made his chest ache in a way he didn't want to examine. Jace? Nessa's voice pulled him back. She was looking at him with concern. Are you all right? Yeah, fine. Just processing. He forced himself to focus. Okay. Toby, can you really get a message to Sienna without being caught? Please. Please. I've been running contraband tech past enforcement sensors since I was 16. I've got this. Toby's natural eye studied Jace with unexpected perception. Question is, are you going to be okay here with her? Because you're looking at her like, I'm fine. Jace cut him off, feeling heat rise to his face. Go. Be careful. And Toby? Thank you. Save your thanks for when we all survive this. Toby moved to the hatch, paused. For what it's worth? You did a good thing helping her. Stupid. Definitely going to complicate your life in spectacular ways, but good. After Toby left, silence filled the shelter. Jace became acutely aware that he was still holding Nessa's hand. He started to pull away, but she tightened her grip. Thank you, she said softly. For everything. The medical kit, the shelter, bringing Toby to help. You've risked so much for a stranger. You're not really a stranger anymore, Jace said. Then, because the question had been burning in him since he found her. What are you running from, Nessa? Who wants you badly enough to hire private armies? Nessa looked down at their hands, her luminescent blood still staining both of them. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. I'm running from my destiny. From a life that was chosen for me before I was born. From a marriage to someone I've never loved, who would use me as a political tool to conquer systems and subjugate worlds. She looked up, and there were tears in those nebula eyes. I'm running from becoming the symbol of everything I hate. And if they catch me, billions of people will suffer because of it. Jace had no idea what to say to that. So instead, he did something that surprised them both. He pulled her into a hug. Nessa stiffened for a moment, then melted against him, and he could feel her shaking with silent sobs. Then we won't let them catch you, Jace said into her starlight hair. I promise. It was a promise he had no idea how to keep. But as Nessa's arms wrapped around him, and her light pulsed warm against his chest, he knew he would die trying .**. The hours waiting for Toby to return were the longest of Jace's life. He tried to keep busy, cleaning the blue blood from the floor, organizing his meager supplies, checking and rechecking the hatch's security. But his eyes kept drifting back to Nessa, who sat on his sleeping mat with her knees drawn up, staring at nothing. "Tell me about them," Jace said finally, breaking the silence. "Your family. The people in the photograph." Nessa looked up surprised. "You saw the photograph?" I grabbed everything that looked important from the pod. "It's over there." He gestured to the crystal frame sitting on his makeshift table. She rose and picked it up, her fingers tracing the image with such tenderness that it made Jace's throat tight. "This is my mother, Queen Isadora. And this," she touched the laughing girl, "is my sister Rhea. She's 16. She wants to be an engineer, not a diplomat. She's brilliant and funny and completely fearless. They must be worried about you. My mother knows why I left. She didn't try to stop me. That's how I knew it was bad." Nessa's voice wavered. "She told me that if I stayed, I would become something neither of us could recognize. That sometimes running is braver than standing still." Jace moved to stand beside her, looking at the photograph. "And your sister?" "Rhea helped me plan the escape. She's the one who stole the pod from the royal hangar, who programmed the navigation to get me as far from Andromeda Sovereignty space as possible." A small smile crossed Nessa's face. "She told me to find somewhere nobody would think to look. A backwater planet where I could disappear." "Earth's definitely backwater," Jace said with a slight grin. "We haven't even colonized our own solar system properly yet. That's what made it perfect. Who would think Princess Celestin of the Andromeda Sovereignty would flee to a pre-interstellar world?" Jace froze. "Princess Celestin?" Nessa Celestin closed her eyes. "That's my real name. Celestin Isadora Starweaver, first daughter of Queen Isadora, heir to the Andromeda throne, and unwilling bride-to-be to Sovereign Overlord Kane of the Obsidian Empire." She opened her eyes and looked at him. "Nessa is what my sister calls me. It's who I want to be. So Toby was right. I did rescue an alien princess." Jace ran his hand through his hair. "An alien princess being hunted by what, an evil empire? It's not that simple. The Obsidian Empire isn't evil. They're powerful, militaristic, expansionist. Kane is brilliant and ruthless. Our marriage was arranged to prevent a war that would devastate both our territories. Billions of lives depend on this union. But you don't love him. I've never even met him. I've seen him in holovids. He's handsome enough, in an intimidating way. Dark energy radiating from him like a weapon. They say he's never lost a battle." Celestin set the photograph down. "And I'm supposed to marry him in 3 months and spend the rest of my life as a political ornament while he uses my family's resources to conquer the outer systems. That's..." Jace struggled for words. "That's not a marriage. That's a prison sentence." "Exactly." Celestin turned to face him fully. "So I ran. I took the pod and I fled, knowing that I might be starting the very war one was trying to prevent. Knowing that I'm being selfish, putting my own happiness above the needs of billions. But Jace, I couldn't do it. I couldn't become a piece on someone else's game board." Before Jace could respond, the hatch burst open. Both of them spun, Celestin moving to put Jace behind her, which would have been sweet if it wasn't absurd given that he was the one who knew how to fight on Earth. But it was only Toby, breathing hard. "We've got problems," he said without preamble. "Multiple problems. The good news is I found Sienna, and she's coming here. The bad news is she's not alone." "Who's with her?" Celestin asked sharply. "A bounty hunter named Marcus Vale. Human, actually, but he works for off-world clients. He's been tracking you since you left Andromeda space." Toby pulled up a holographic image from his cybernetic arm, a man in his 30s, scarred and dangerous looking, with cold gray eyes. "He's not with the contractors, he's independent. And he's got a reputation for never losing a target." Jace felt his blood run cold. Is he with Sienna willingly? No, she's his prisoner. He's using her as bait. Toby's expression was grim. He sent out a broadband message an hour ago, claiming he has someone close to the Andromeda asset and will trade her for the princess. He gave us until dawn to respond. That's in 3 hours, Jace said, checking his cracked watch. Celestin was already moving, gathering the medical kit and the items from the pod. Then we go. We trade me for Sienna. Absolutely not, Jace said immediately. She's my friend. She's in danger because of me. And walking into a trap won't help her, Toby interjected. Vale isn't known for making fair trades. He'll take you both and collect double the bounty. Then what do you suggest? Celestin's eyes flashed with frustration and fear. We can't just leave her. Jace's mind was racing, falling into the same kind of tactical thinking that had kept him alive on the streets. Where's the exchange supposed to happen? The old metro station on the edge of the industrial sector. Section 9. Toby displayed a map. It's abandoned, lots of exits, good sight lines. Classic bounty hunter setup. I know that station, Jace said slowly. I used to sleep there before I found this place. There's a maintenance level below the main platform that most people don't know about. If we could get there first, we could ambush the ambusher, Toby finished, a grin spreading across his face. I like it, but we'd need equipment, weapons, something to even the odds against a professional bounty hunter. I can help with that, Celestin said. She opened the medical kit and pulled out what looked like a small silver disc. This is a personal shield generator. Military grade. It'll stop most projectile and energy weapons for about 15 minutes. She handed it to Jace. And this, she produced a sleek device that looked like a cross between a gun and a musical instrument, is a sonic disruptor. Non-lethal, but it'll incapacitate a human for several minutes. You had weapons in your medical kit? Jace asked. I'm a princess fleeing an arranged marriage across hostile space. Of course I had weapons. Celestin's expression softened. But Jace, you don't have to do this. This isn't your fight. You've already done more than anyone could ask. Jace took the shield generator and the sonic disruptor, testing their weight in his hands. He looked at Celestin, at Nessa, at this impossible girl who'd crashed into his life and made him feel something he thought he'd forgotten how to feel. You're wrong, he said quietly. This became my fight the moment I decided to help you. I'm not walking away now. Something shifted in Celestin's expression, something warm and yearning and terrified all at once. She stepped closer to him, close enough that he could see the way her inner light pulsed, fast and nervous. Why? She asked. Why are you doing this? You could have left me in that pod. You could have taken the reward money and lived comfortably for years. Why risk everything for someone you just met? Jace knew the answer. He'd known it since he'd held her in his arms while she cried. But saying it out loud, making it real, felt more dangerous than any bounty hunter. Because, he said, and his voice came out rougher than intended, in 5 years of surviving in this city, I've never met anyone who made me want to live instead of just survive. And that's what you do, Nessa. You make me want more. Celestin's eyes widened, and for a moment the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then she kissed him. It was soft and desperate, and tasted like starlight, and Jace felt like he was falling and flying at the same time. Her hands cupped his face, and his arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, and he could feel her light pulsing through his skin, warm and electric and alive. Toby cleared his throat loudly. As much as I'm enjoying this romantic development, we have approximately 2 hours and 45 minutes to plan a rescue operation and not die. They broke apart, both breathing hard. Celestin's cheeks had darkened with what might have been a blush, if her alien biology worked that way. Jace couldn't seem to form words. "Right," Celestin said, her voice slightly unsteady. "The plan? Let's focus on the plan." Over the next 2 hours, they worked out the details. Toby would create a diversion, using some of his more experimental tech flash grenades, smoke bombs, a device that would temporarily disable electronic surveillance. Jace would use the maintenance tunnels to reach the lower level of the metro station and position himself for the ambush. Celestin would be the one to make contact with Vale, offering herself in exchange for Sienna, but from a position where Jace could intervene if things went wrong. "This is insane," Toby said as they geared up. "You know that, right? We're 3 people well, 2 humans and a princess, going up against a professional bounty hunter who's probably got back up. Got a better idea?" Jace asked, checking the sonic disruptor's charge. "Running away and living under fake names on a colony ship?" "After we rescue Sienna," Celestin said firmly. She looked at Jace. "Then maybe running away isn't such a bad idea." The metro station was exactly as Jace remembered: decaying concrete and broken tile. Graffiti covering every surface. The ghosts of commuters long past, still echoing in the empty tunnels. He moved through the maintenance level like a shadow, years of practice making him nearly invisible in the darkness. Above him, he could hear voices. Vale's cold and professional. "I appreciate your cooperation, Miss Sienna. Your princess will be here soon." And Sienna's response, defiant despite whatever situation she was in, "She won't come. She's smarter than you think. Everyone comes for the people they love." It's the most predictable thing about sentient beings. Jace reached his position directly below where Vale was standing, according to Toby's mapping. He activated the shield generator, feeling it hum to life against his chest. Then he waited. Celestin's voice echoed through the station. "I'm here, Vale. Let Sienna go. Princess Celestin. How wonderful to finally meet you." Vale's voice was smooth, almost friendly. "You're worth quite a fortune, you know. Several parties are willing to pay handsomely for your return." "I'm sure they are. But I'm only interested in one transaction. Me for Sienna. Fair trade." "Nothing about this is fair, Your Highness. You're a runaway princess who's about to start a war. I'm just a businessman capitalizing on an opportunity." Jace heard movement above footsteps, the sound of weapons being readied. This was it. Now. He heard Celestin shout out. Everything happened at once. Toby's flash grenades detonated, filling the station with blinding light and deafening noise. Jace punched through the weakened flooring above him. He'd scouted this exact spot, knew it would give way, and emerged directly behind Vale. The bounty hunter was fast, already turning, weapon rising. But Jace was faster, driven by something more than training or instinct. He was driven by the need to protect the girl who'd made him feel alive again. The sonic disruptor fired, and Vale went down hard, convulsing. Jace didn't wait. He was already moving toward Sienna, who was chained to a pillar. She was indeed tall and silver-haired, and her eyes widened in shock as Jace worked at her restraints. "Who?" she started. "Friend of Nessa's. Hold still." The chains released just as the smoke began to clear. Jace could see figures moving at the edge of the platform Vale's backup, just as Toby had predicted. "Celestin, we need to move," Sienna shouted. Celestin was already running toward them, but one of Vale's crew stepped into her path. A massive figure in combat armor, weapon raised. Jace felt his heart stop. The figure fired. Celestin's scream of pain echoed through the station, and Jace watched in horror as she fell, clutching her shoulder. Blue blood blossomed through her fingers. Glowing in the dim light, something broke inside Jace. Something that had been keeping him careful, keeping him measured. He didn't remember crossing the distance to Celestin. He didn't remember firing the sonic disruptor at the armored figure, then at the next one and the next. He only remembered kneeling beside Celestin, gathering her into his arms, feeling that light flickering under her skin. "Stay with me," he said, his voice breaking. "Nessa, please, stay with me." Her eyes found his, and even through the pain, she smiled. "Told you Sienna would come." "You're an idiot," Sienna said, but her voice was thick with emotion as she knelt beside them. She was already pulling medical supplies from a pack she'd somehow kept. "A brave, beautiful idiot." Toby appeared from the smoke, breathing hard. "We've got maybe 90 seconds before more show up." "Can she move?" "We'll make her move," Sienna said grimly, injecting Celestin with the same regenerative serum Jace had used before. "Princess, I need you to be strong for a little longer. Hate when you—" "Call me that," Celestin mumbled, but she was already trying to stand. They half-carried, half-dragged her through the tunnels, Toby leading the way with his cybernetic eye scanning for pursuit. Behind them, they could hear shouts, the sound of reinforcements arriving. They'd bought themselves time, but not much. They made it back to Jace's shelter just as the regenerative serum fully kicked in. Celestin collapsed onto the sleeping mat, breathing hard but clearly healing. Sienna immediately began checking her wounds with professional efficiency. "You actually did it," Toby said, disbelief in his voice. "We actually pulled that off." "Barely," Jace said. His hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. "And now they know we're working together. They'll be looking for all of us." Sienna looked up from treating Celestin, her expression grave. "Then we need to leave. Tonight, I have a ship hidden in orbit, a gift from Princess Rhea. It's small, but it can get us out of this system. All of us?" Jace asked, "If you want to come." Celestin's hand found his, squeezing weakly. "Jace, you can't stay here now. They saw you. They know your face. You'll never be safe on Earth again." Jace looked around his shelter, this place that had been his refuge for years, his home in a city that had tried to grind him down. He thought about what leaving would mean. Everything he knew, the life he'd built, the city he understood. Then he looked at Celestin, at her nebula eyes watching him with hope and fear and something that might have been love. "When do we leave?" he asked. Celestin's smile was like sunrise. But before anyone could answer, before they could plan their escape to the stars, an alert sounded on Toby's cybernetic arm. His face went pale. "Oh no. What?" Sienna asked sharply. Toby displayed a holographic news feed. The headline made Jace's blood run cold. "Breaking. Andromeda Sovereignty Fleet enters Earth orbit. Royal delegation demands return of Princess Celestin. Ultimatum given. Surrender in 24 hours or face sanctions." Below the headline was an image that made Celestin gasp. It showed a man standing on the bridge of a massive warship, tall, radiating dark energy. With eyes like chips of black ice, that sovereign overlord Kane had come to collect his bride. And he'd brought an army to do it.